There was a fragile calmness in my life. That feeling when I would watch my baby girl sleeping peacefully in her crib, the soft glow of the nightlight casting gentle shadows around her room. I believed that moment was everything. The purest form of happiness, safety, and hope for the future. But in the blink of an eye, that calm shattered into pieces I never thought I'd have to face. It all started with a small decision, one made out of love and practicality, buying a baby monitor to keep an eye on her when we weren't right there. I never imagined that same device would become the silent witness to the most painful betrayal of my life. Watching through that screen, I saw the person I trusted most, my wife, in a moment that broke the very foundation of our family. Not protecting our home, but tearing it apart, right there in the room meant to be our daughter's sanctuary. My mind spiraled with questions I couldn't begin to answer. Why did this happen? How did I not see it coming? And most importantly, how could I move forward when everything I held dear felt like it was crumbling around me? This story isn't just about infidelity. It's about trust shattered, love lost, and the agonizing path toward healing and revenge. I'm sharing it with you not just as a confession, but as a journey, one that I hope will make you think about what you would do if you were in my shoes. So join me as I take you through the moments of disbelief, pain, and finally, resilience. This isn't just my story. It's a story about love, betrayal, and the difficult choices that come when your world falls apart. Where would you stand if you were faced with the truth? Could forgiveness ever be possible? Or is some pain too deep to ever heal? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, and let's start this conversation together. When I first met Naomi, it felt like the world had somehow tuned perfectly to a frequency only we could hear. The kind of connection that didn't just sweep you off your feet, but made you believe in forever. We met at a local fair, and from that moment, it was like a spark ignited and grew into a flame neither of us wanted to let die. Our relationship felt genuine, simple, and untouched by the kind of drama that twists lives apart. We laughed, argued like any normal couple, but our love was steady, a solid ground to build on. For 7 years, we navigated the ups and downs of marriage with a deep gratitude for having each other. But reality, as it often does, crept in quietly. Naomi and I shared a decision neither of us took lightly. We weren't rushing to have child. There was comfort in our freedom, those late-night conversations about traveling, career plans, and just holding on to youth a while longer. Yet, beneath those dreams lingered an unspoken hope. Someday, our family would grow. And when Naomi finally told me she was pregnant, the joy that exploded inside me was something I didn't expect. It wasn't just happiness. It was a rebirth of my own purpose. But the moment our daughter entered the world, our balanced life shifted in ways I could have never prepared for. Parenthood isn't just a title. It's a relentless storm of sleepless nights, worries, and sacrifices. It's surrendering your time, your energy, your identity to someone so small who suddenly becomes the center of your universe. And in that storm, our marriage began to face challenges that felt both cruel and unfair. Naomi was exhausted to the bone. I could see it in her eyes, the way she'd blink back tears when the baby cried nonstop, how she barely had a moment to herself. I worked remotely, hoping that made things easier, but even I felt trapped under the heavy weight of responsibility. No family nearby to lean on, no trusted friends who could step in. We were alone in this. The kind of alone where even a few hours out just to breathe or remember who you are as a person feels impossible. Arguments started creeping in, little ones that snowballed silently. The frustration of missed plans, canceled dinners, stolen weekends. Naomi longing for just a break. Me, feeling guilty whenever I wanted one. Our love felt the strain of exhaustion and unmet needs, and I wondered if this was our new normal or just a rough patch we could survive. And then came the idea of the baby monitor, my attempt at creating a small oasis in this chaos. The thought was simple, a way to keep an eye on our daughter without having to be glued to her side every single moment. I imagined Naomi getting some well-deserved space, be able to run errands without fear, and us both regaining a slice of normalcy. I pictured us stepping outside the house for a quick dinner, laughter without guilt, small adventures we had stopped allowing ourselves. But Naomi was hesitant. I could see the fear behind her words. What if something happens? What if we leave her alone too long? Her anxiety mirrored a deep need to protect, to hold tight to the family we'd just begun. It was a logical deadlock, this clash of hope versus fear. Our conversation stretched on, sometimes ending with unspoken tension, the kind that settles over a room but doesn't break it apart. Yet, behind all this was the unspoken truth. We were fragile, vulnerable, trying to hold together a life that was shifting beneath our feet. The story didn't just end here, though, because that monitor, the very thing meant to give us peace, would soon become the tool that revealed a fracture far deeper than exhaustion or frustration. And what I saw through that screen shook me to the core, burning the fragile trust we built from day one. But before I could confront that truth, before the world as I knew it collapsed, I had to navigate the daily grind of sleepless nights and silent struggles with Naomi, a partner I still wish to believe in, even as doubts started to take root. This is where the Betrayal story begins. A journey tangled with pain, love, betrayal, and the daunting quest for answers. And it's one I want you to walk through with me. In the swirl of exhaustion and never-ending responsibilities, I thought the baby monitor would be a lifeline, a way to steal back a fraction of the freedom we'd lost. It was supposed to be simple. A small camera connected to my phone, letting me check in on our daughter from anywhere in the house or even outside. I didn't even realize I hadn't told Naomi that I bought it. Looking back, maybe that was the first sign something was already fraying beneath the surface. Trust, communication, the very foundation we built. Setting it up felt routine at first. The camera, tucked quietly into the corner of her room, barely noticeable in the low light. I imagined Naomi waking up some mornings to a few peaceful hours to herself, while I kept an eye via my phone. A compromise, a small victory for both of us. But life doesn't always paint the picture we hope for. The day Naomi asked me to take her daughter along while she rested caught me off guard. She was worn down to her core, eyes heavy, voice soft with fatigue. I wanted to be supportive, to give her that chance to breathe. So I agreed. I packed up all the baby's essentials, ready to run my errands with a little extra time in my day. Our daughter was calm, almost angelic, and I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe, just maybe, things could feel a little normal again. And then, as I sat in my car, a notification lit up my phone from the baby monitor app. Movement detected. I assumed Naomi was simply checking on the baby or doing something in her room. But when I opened the live feed, everything changed. What I saw stopped my breath. My wife, Naomi, with a man I didn't know, inside our daughter's room, their bodies tangled in a way that stole the air from my chest. At first, I thought she was being attacked. My heart raced, screams almost tore through me. But the cries and moans told a different story. They were kissing, touching in secret moments stolen in the very room meant for our child's innocence. I felt frozen, the screen flashing images of betrayal, of a trust violated in the cruelest way. His hand slipped beneath her blouse. She didn't stop him. The baby's crib, her sleeping sanctuary, was the backdrop for a scene that shattered everything I thought I knew. My mind spiraled in chaos. Anger, confusion, disbelief, each wave hitting harder than the last. How could this happen right here? In our home? Did she plan this? Did she choose the day I was with our daughter to disappear behind that door? The thought that my little girl might have been closer than I imagined to this secret broke me. I wanted to leave immediately, to confront, to scream, to demand answers. But I took a breath. For her safety, for mine, for the sake of the daughter who had no part in this nightmare. I could not let the storm I felt inside spill over in her world. Instead, I recorded the screen, silent proof that would speak when my voice couldn't. It was the heaviest weight I'd ever carried, a secret locked behind screen. That day haunted me. Every errand felt pointless, every moment away from home a torment. The split between what I saw and what I wanted to believe created a rift I wrestled with painfully. Still, I didn't tell Naomi, not yet. I needed time to gather myself, to make sense of a world that had tilted off its axis. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about betrayal at every level: the home, the heart, and the very trust we pledged 7 years ago. Soon, I knew I'd have to confront her, but that would come later. First, I had to survive the storm inside me and make peace with the broken pieces of what once was. The day I finally confronted Naomi is etched in my mind like a jagged scar, sharp, painful, and impossible to erase. For 2 long days after that unbearable discovery, I lived in a suspended fog of disbelief, anger, and heartache. Every waking moment was a battle between wanting answers and desperately wishing the nightmare was just a cruel hallucination. But deep down, I knew the truth was waiting, raw and unbearable. Morning came slower than usual, heavy with silent tension. Naomi glanced at me with that restless fear in her eyes, the kind of fear that screams guilt but also begs for mercy. I sat her down in the living room, the weight of the recorded video burning in my hands, ready to shatter the fragile silence that had taken over our house. I started softly, trying to hold myself together as I told her about the baby monitor, about how I'd set it up and watched without her knowing. Her confusion was tangible at first, disbelief curling across her face like a shadow. Then, the moment her eyes locked with mine, something inside her cracked. She covered her mouth. The shock, the shame, the guilt all unmasked in a single breathless second. I asked the questions I'd been drowning in. Why did you cheat? Who is he? Why in our daughter's room? But instead of answers, I got tears, jagged, broken sobs that made understanding impossible. The woman I loved was there, shrinking behind walls of pain and silence, unable to even meet my gaze. The silence that followed was suffocating, a heavy pause where the love we shared seemed to vanish, replaced by a chasm of betrayal. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand the truth. But I felt hollow, drained, as if every ounce of energy was sucked out by the sheer weight of disappointment. Our conversations twisted and turned in circles, her sobbing words too fragmented to hold meaning, my heart cracking with each failed attempt to reach her. Then, she whispered the name, a man I never expected, a stranger dragging our life into ruin. Hearing that name, knowing the reality of her actions, sent a fresh wave of disgust crashing through me. But beneath the fury lay a deeper ache. The devastation of realizing our family, our vows, had been neglected in the shadows. And yet, in the darkest corners of my mind, I couldn't help but hear her words, accusing me for buying the monitor without asking, as if my attempt at safeguarding our daughter was some twisted crime that gave her permission to betray. It was a bitter, nauseating blow that twisted the knife deeper. Despite it all, the days after were filled with a strange numbness. Naomi had left the house, a ghost of what she once was. I wrestled with waves of rage and sorrow, trying to hold myself together for our daughter. Sleepless nights became the norm, haunted by memories and what-ifs. Friends and family circled in concern, but words fell flat against the deafening silence inside me. Jacob, my closest friend since college, became my sounding board. Late-night calls poured out my frustrations, my pain, and somehow his steady voice reminded me I wasn't alone. Jessica, Naomi's sister, reached out too, torn between loyalty and heartbreak, caught in the middle of a family torn apart. Every day was a tightrope walk, balancing hatred with lingering affection, protecting my daughter from the storm, and grappling with the shattering of a life I thought was unbreakable. I was lost between wanting to forgive and the burning need for justice, unsure if either path could ever bring peace. But beneath it all, a new resolve was forming, a determination not to let this betrayal define me or destroy the future my daughter deserved. It was the first step toward reclaiming my life from the wreckage. The path ahead would be long, complicated, and painful, but I knew I had to face it head on. When the shock of betrayal slowly gave way to icy resolve, I realized there was only one path left to walk, a path that demanded strength I didn't know I had and a strategy to reclaim what was taken from me. Revenge isn't about cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was about justice, about making sure that the pain I felt wouldn't go unanswered and that no one would get away with tearing apart the family I once believed in. I'm not proud of this part of my story, but it was real. The raw mix of heartbreak and anger fueled me to take control in a way that was calculated and clear. I reached out to my friend's wife, an exceptionally skilled divorce attorney I trusted implicitly. She promised me one thing, that with the video evidence, with everything I had, there was a chance not just to win the legal fight, but to protect my daughter's future. The day I handed over that hard drive, that tiny device that held the truth, felt like handing over my soul. It wasn't just pixels and sounds. It was the proof of shattered vows, of deceit disguised as normalcy. The fact that Naomi had asked me to take our daughter out, effectively clearing the house for her secret, showed premeditation, a cold betrayal that hit me deeper than I imagined. The legal process was grueling. Courtrooms can be cold, and judges don't see the people behind the divorces, just the paperwork, the evidence, the facts. But in my state, infidelity carried weight. Weight I leaned on in every hearing, in every meeting with her lawyer. Naomi fought back hard, especially for the flower shop, that little corner store my uncle left me, the place I'd lent to her to build her dream. It was more than just a business. It was a symbol of hope for her, and also of legacy for me. I remember my lawyer telling me that letting Naomi keep the shop would be like rewarding a betrayal, that in cases like this, the court wanted to send a message. I could feel that message coursing through every document signed, every argument made. The struggle for custody was no less brutal. Despite everything, we ended up sharing joint custody of our daughter. It wasn't the victory I dreamed of, but knowing she wouldn't have to pay me support because of her actions somehow softened the blow. But revenge wasn't just about money or possessions. It was about reputation. I found John Carpenter, the man she'd shared those stolen moments with, on social media. Finding his wife was disturbingly easy, and sharing the truth with her felt like a weight lifted from my shoulders. It wasn't about hurting for the sake of hurting, but about revealing the damage hidden behind closed doors. Naomi's calls, begging to use the shop again, pleading for forgiveness, fell on deaf ears. I saw the tears, the desperation, but there was no going back. Her store closed. Her business crumbled, and with every shattered bouquet that went unsold, I felt a bittersweet justice. But even as I stood victorious on the surface, the battle wasn't over. The emptiness of that victory lingered. Holding my daughter, alone in our now fractured home, I realized that some wounds don't heal through revenge. The road to recovery would demand more than courtroom wins. It would require me to rebuild trust in myself and rediscover peace. After the echoes of the courtroom faded and the dust settled on what was left of my marriage, I found myself standing at the edge of a new chapter, one I never imagined I'd write so soon. The house felt quieter, emptier, but somehow freer. There was no Naomi bustling around, no weight of secrets hanging in the air. Just me, my daughter, and the uncertain path ahead. The first mornings alone were the hardest. Waking up to a silence that wasn't peaceful but heavy, a reminder of all that had been lost. I thought about how much had changed in such a short time and how much more I still needed to heal. It wasn't just about moving on from Naomi. It was about reclaiming my own sense of self after betrayal cut so deeply. Friends like Jacob stayed by my side. His quiet presence reminded me I didn't have to face this alone. And Jessica, Naomi's sister, who, despite her own heartbreak, reached out with cautious kindness. Their support was a beacon in a sea of confusion. Caring for my daughter became the anchor that kept me grounded. Every smile, every giggle, every restless night fed my resolve to build something stable and honest from the ruin. Yet, beneath the surface, a war raged inside me, between the fury that still simmered and the slow, painful work of forgiveness. I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the past or pretending the betrayal never happened. It was about accepting that life's scars tell a story a story of survival, growth, and sometimes even redemption. The process of rebuilding pushed me to rediscover parts of myself I'd lost: confidence, hope, and faith in new beginnings. I started setting small goals: work, hobbies, reconnecting with old friends, steps that made the future seem less daunting. Sometimes I caught myself wondering about Naomi. Was she really gone from our daughter's life for good? Had she learned anything from it all? These questions burned quietly, reflecting the complex mix of anger, pity, and unresolved feelings that linger after betrayal. But above all, I learned that trust is fragile and precious, yet it doesn't define our worth or the love we give. My daughter deserved the best version of me, a father who could rise from the ashes. This journey wasn't my choice, but it became my battle to win. And as I stand here now, looking toward the future, I want to tell you, betrayal shatters, yes, but can also rebuild. Not all battles happen inside homes. Some are fought in the quiet, unassuming places where we give our time and heart without expecting much back. I want to share a story, not mine this time, but that of a close friend whose courage and heartbreak opened my eyes to a different kind of betrayal: the quiet cruelty of favoritism at work. She started volunteering at a local charity shop, month after month, pouring her energy into the job when she was still trying to find her footing after a rough patch in life. Volunteering was more than just passing time. It was her lifeline, a way to rebuild confidence, find purpose, and wake up each morning with a goal. At first, there was hope. When the old manager had to leave for a medical procedure, my friend stepped up, running the shop alone with a fierce dedication that earned respect from fellow volunteers and customers alike. She knew the ropes. She cared deeply. The store's heartbeat seemed to align with hers. Then the tide shifted. A new manager arrived. Mary, only 19, but with strong ties to upper management through family friendships. Suddenly, the dynamics changed. My friend was encouraged to apply for a paid position that opened when the assistant manager left. She prepared, rehearsed for the interview with Mary's help, and even got to run the shop solo for days. A clear vote of confidence. But behind the scenes, the game was fixed. Mary and her mother, who held influence with company higher-ups, favored another candidate, Mary's best friend's daughter, someone with no real experience. The decision was made before my friend even walked into the interview room. When the rejection call came, it wasn't just a loss of a job. It was a brutal confirmation that hard work, loyalty, and merit could be swept aside by nepotism. They offered her a hollow consolation: a lead volunteer title, unpaid, with even more responsibilities but no recognition or income. Her disappointment was crushing, not just in the job, but in the betrayal by the very people she trusted. The place where she had rebuilt confidence became a source of pain and disillusionment. She confided in me about the late nights, wondering if she should quit, the bitter feeling of being used, and the realization that some systems are rigged to protect insiders. Her story echoed far beyond her small-town charity shop, a reflection of workplace injustices faced by many. But even in darkness, she found light. After leaving, she reported the favoritism to upper management, hoping to spark change. She found new opportunities elsewhere, where merit was honored over connections. Her courage to walk away, to stand up, and demand fairness became a quiet victory. Her story reminds me that betrayal, injustice, and pain come in many forms, from broken marriages to broken workplaces. But resilience, self-worth, and the pursuit of truth can turn those wounds into strength. This is not just her story. It's a lesson for all of us, to fight for fairness, to recognize injustice, and to never let anyone dim the value of our effort and heart. As this chapter closes, I invite you to think about your own battles. What have you endured silently? And how have you found the courage to rise? Thank you for listening to these stories, raw, painful, but real. If you've been touched or moved, please share your thoughts below. Your voice matters, and maybe, together, we can find strength in shared experience.